didn't expect to be alone this long. I thought silence had an expiration date. I thought heartbreak had a schedule. But here I am, still carrying it. Some grief doesn't scream. It just lingers quietly, patiently, like dust on a bookshelf no one touches anymore. I think I believed, somewhere in the back of my mind, that someone would come. Someone would notice the tired in my smile, the ache hiding behind my strength, the way I said, "I'm fine," with a voice that didn't sound like mine anymore. But no one came. And after a while, I stopped looking, stopped refreshing the thread, stopped hoping today would be the day someone would understand the language of my silence. That's when it began. This stillness. Not peaceful, not at first. More like an ache without sound. A sob that got stuck in the throat. The kind of silence that wraps itself around your spine and makes you forget what it felt like to be held without needing to be perfect. I've carried this too long. The pretending, the waiting, the hoping that if I just loved hard enough, softened enough, sacrificed enough, someone would finally stay. But all I ever did was shrink. Make room, make excuses, make myself small enough to fit inside their neglect. And now, there's nothing left to make, only this moment, only this breath, only this truth I've kept pressed between my ribs for far too long. I don't know what healing looks like, but I know what breaking in silence feels like. And tonight, I'm letting myself say it, even if no one's listening, even if it echoes, even if it hurts. I've carried this too long, and I'm tired of calling it love. There were nights I was held and still felt cold. Smiles were shared. Laughter echoed. But I wasn't there. Not really. I learned, early on, how to be present without being seen. How to sit next to someone and still feel like I was whispering through glass. How to dress up pain with charm. How to nod at conversations that never touched me. How to be loved without being known. The loneliness didn't wait for the breakup. It started while I was still being kissed goodnight. It started when my stories were answered with silence, when my feelings became too much, when my voice began to dim itself to keep the peace. No one tells you how isolating it is to be touched but not felt, to be watched but not witnessed, to be chosen in public and forgotten in private. I remember the exact moment I realized I was disappearing. We were sitting together, him scrolling, me trying to find the right sentence to say so it wouldn't sound like I needed too much. Like I wasn't trying to be difficult. Like I wasn't asking, again, to be held with something more than arms. I laughed at something that didn't feel funny, and he smiled like he believed it. That was the moment. I became invisible. Not because I wasn't trying to connect, but because I was trying too hard. That's the kind of loneliness no one sees. The kind that moves in quietly, makes a home out of your chest, and stays even when the room is full. I could be surrounded by friends, by music, by the person I once dreamed of, and still feel like I was speaking in a language no one remembered how to understand. I stopped trying after a while, stopped reaching, stopped offering pieces of myself that were only going to be misunderstood. Because it hurts, you know, to hand someone your truth and watch them look away. To say, "This is what I need," and hear silence as a reply. It's not that I was alone. It's that I was alone inside connection. And that kind of ache is deeper than solitude. It's the loneliness that follows you into birthday dinners, into relationships, into the sound of your own name being called but never really felt. I used to think that if I was good enough, soft enough, safe enough, I would finally be met. But all I ever became was understandable, predictable, easy to forget in a crowd. So I shrank, and smiled, and played my part well. But inside, I was screaming, quietly, politely, until even I couldn't hear it anymore. There is a moment in every slow heartbreak when you realize you've been grieving someone who's still sitting right next to you. That moment wrecked me, because I was mourning while loving, disappearing while performing. I didn't leave because love ended. I left because I ended. Because I became a ghost in my own body, the shell of a woman who once wanted everything and now just wanted to feel something real before she forgot how. So when I tell you I'm lonely, don't assume I'm alone. Sometimes the most haunting kind of silence is the one that speaks right after someone says, I love you, and you realize they don't really see you anymore. That's the loneliness I carried. Into crowded rooms, into holding hands, into conversations that asked, how are you? But never waited for the real answer. And now I'm learning to sit with it. Not run from it. Not blame it. Just meet it. Because maybe the loneliness wasn't a punishment. Maybe it was the part of me that refused to die quietly. The part that knew I was worth more than being half seen, half loved, half held. Maybe it was my soul waiting for me to come home. I didn't just fall in love. I fell into shape. Into a version of myself I thought he could hold. Smaller, softer, easier to carry. I learned to tuck away the parts of me that asked for too much. To laugh quieter. To cry prettier. To never bring up the same fear twice, because being needy felt more dangerous than being neglected. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw less of me and more of what I thought he wanted. I became a story rewritten for his comfort. Stripped of chapters, muted in tone, edited until only the outline remained. And I let it happen. Not because I was weak, but because I was terrified. Terrified that if I stayed whole, I'd be left. That if I showed the truth of me, the messy, hungry, longing parts, he would turn away. So I trimmed the edges, smoothed the wildness, smiled through the silence, swallowed the words that shook in my throat. I wasn't trying to manipulate love. I was trying to earn it, to deserve it, to become so easy to want that I'd never be abandoned again. But desire built on disappearance is a slow form of death. It chips away at you. Not all at once, but in small, polite sacrifices. Like saying, I'm okay, when I was shaking inside. Like agreeing just to be agreeable. Like offering yes after yes until I forgot the taste of no. I disappeared by degrees, not dramatically quietly. So quietly that even I didn't notice at first. I thought I was maturing, compromising, being the chill one. But what I was really doing was abandoning myself in pieces. I remember sitting next to him, hearing him speak about the kind of woman he admired, and feeling the shame rise in me as I realized I wasn't her. But I could become her. I could try. And so I did. I changed my clothes, softened my tone, held back opinions. I told him I loved his independence while dying for him to need me. And when he praised me for not being emotional, I wore that like a badge while my emotions screamed beneath the skin. I didn't just want love. I wanted to be wanted badly enough that I let myself vanish to get it. But disappearing isn't sustainable. Eventually the soul gets tired. Eventually the body remembers. Eventually, your silence starts to suffocate you more than their absence ever could. And that's what happened. I stopped recognizing myself. I'd look in the mirror and feel haunted like a woman living in someone else's face. The grief wasn't just for the relationship. It was for the woman I lost while trying to be enough. She didn't need to be fixed. She needed to be loved as is raw, loud, tender, inconvenient. But I didn't know that then. All I knew was that love seemed conditional, and I was willing to meet the terms. It's hard to admit this. Hard to speak aloud the ways I betrayed myself for affection that never lasted. But this is how it happens. We don't always get abandoned. Sometimes we abandon ourselves first, just to make sure we don't scare them away. And I don't know if she means me or him. Maybe both. But I do know this. I'm done disappearing. If I have to lose myself to be loved, it's not love, it's performance. And I deserve to be seen, not staged. There came a day when I just stopped explaining. Not because I had nothing left to say, but because I realized no one could hear me through the lens of their comfort. I used to bleed beautifully, turn my pain into poetry, my ache into something soft enough for them to understand without flinching. I thought, if I could say it right, say it calmly, say it kindly, they'd finally see the weight I was carrying. That maybe they'd stay, hold it with me, love me through it, but they didn't. They listened like I was a puzzle, not a person. They wanted to fix me, or worse, dismiss me, turn the page too soon, rush the ending, wrap it up in silver linings I hadn't earned yet. So I stopped. I stopped breaking myself down into bite-sized pieces of pain. Stopped translating my heartbreak into something palatable. Stopped apologizing for feeling deeply in a world that rewards numbness. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Like slowly closing a door that had been left open for too long. I didn't slam it. I just walked back into myself. And I stayed there. Not in bitterness, not in anger, but in stillness. I let my pain be sacred, not a story, not a spectacle, not a reason to beg someone to stay. I started letting silence speak for me, and it said things no sentence ever could. I didn't need anyone to nod anymore. I didn't need their sympathy, their confused kindness, their half-hearted check-ins that only came when I was quiet too long. I stopped hoping someone would finally understand, because maybe they never will. Maybe some grief isn't meant to be witnessed by anyone but you. That's the boundary I never knew. I needed the one that says, this pain is mine. It doesn't need to be proven to exist. I've cried alone and still felt more held than when I was explaining my ache to someone who only wanted me when I wasn't heavy. Now, I let myself be heavy. Let myself take up emotional space without asking permission, without softening the edges just to be allowed to speak. And there's peace in that. In no longer chasing validation for what already lives in my bones. I'm not here to be understood anymore. I'm here to be whole, even if no one claps for it, even if no one gets it, because I finally do, and that's enough. There's a life I built without witnesses. No applause, no validation. No one watching through the window to say, I'm proud of you, but I still did it. I still got up. Still made the bed some mornings, not out of motivation, but because I needed to believe that order was possible. I cooked for one, like it mattered. Boiled rice, cut fruit, poured tea into the same chipped mug because nourishment, even unshared, is still sacred. I cried on kitchen floors, wrapped in old towels like they were temple robes. No one came running. No one texted, "Are you okay?" And still I stayed, held myself through it, whispered my own name like a vow, "You're not leaving you, not this time." That's a kind of holy no one teaches you. How to brush your own hair when your hands are shaking. How to light candles, not for ambiance, but for proof. Proof that this moment still holds warmth, even if no one else walks in to feel it. I stopped needing my life to be seen to know that it was real. There were days I didn't speak to anyone. Days the silence stretched long and heavy, not lonely, just loud. I'd water the plants and call it love. I'd put on perfume before bed just to remind myself that I still deserved to smell like something beautiful. I began to understand softness as a kind of rebellion. Not loud, not angry, just deliberate. A decision to keep showing up for myself in small, reverent ways when no one was there to clap. It's not glamorous, this kind of becoming. It doesn't trend. There's no cinematic music in the background when you're washing dishes at 2 a.m. with tears mixing into the soap. But there's honesty. There's presence. There's something sacred in the ordinariness of it all. I learned how to live without performance. How to laugh alone. How to journal not to fix myself, but to witness myself. To say, this happened, and I lived it, and that matters. Some nights I sat on the balcony, watching the sky, do absolutely nothing. And still, I stayed. Not waiting, just being. Like maybe the moon didn't need to understand me. It just needed me to look up. No one clapped when I paid the bills on time. When I made it through another wave of grief without texting someone who once called me home but treated me like a hotel. No one saw me choose silence over begging or dignity over panic. But I did. And I saw it all. There's a holy kind of strength in surviving quietly. In building a life brick by trembling brick with no one cheering at the foundation, just you. And your breath. And your decision to stay when leaving would have been easier. This isn't the kind of strength they write poems about. It's not fierce or wild or loud. It's a woman brushing her teeth after crying until her eyes are swollen. It's lighting incense in a messy room because even grief deserves beauty. It's answering the question, "How are you?" with a gentle, "Still here," and meaning it. The life I built didn't announce itself. It unfolded, one gentle choice at a time. Not for an audience, not for a lover, but for the woman I kept abandoning every time love asked me to shrink. This time, I didn't shrink. I stayed. Through the silence, through the mess, through the aching, empty hours that never made it to social media. I'd sit there like something holy was going to arrive, like the sound of footsteps might rewrite the silence, like maybe, just maybe, they'd come back different. This time softer, this time ready, this time able to love me without making me bleed for it. But no one ever came. Not really. They returned, sometimes, sure, but never for me. They came back for the echo, for the safety, for the version of me who stayed quiet when it hurt. And I almost opened the door every time. Almost. But eventually, even the ache grows tired. Eventually, the waiting turns into decay. And I woke up one morning and realized I didn't want to rot by the window anymore. That wasn't love. That was longing, dressed in grief. That was abandonment, romanticized. So now, I don't wait. Not because I'm bitter. Not because I stopped believing in love. But because I've stopped betraying myself in its name. I no longer clear half the bed. No longer leave space beside me like an offering. I sleep in the middle now. Arms stretched wide. Legs tangled in all the blankets. Like I belong here. Because I do. I cook full meals and eat them like someone's watching, even when they're not. I dance in the kitchen without imagining someone joining in. I light candles for no one but me. And when the doorbell rings, my heart doesn't race like it used to. I don't jump at ghosts anymore. You see, I used to think being alone meant being unwanted. But now I know abandonment and solitude are not the same. Being alone is a circumstance. Abandonment is a wound. And I've stopped feeding mine with fantasies. Stopped turning every silence into a sign. Stopped believing that my worth depends on someone else's return. If love comes now, it will not find a woman waiting. It will find a life already full, a heart already home. I've built rhythms around my breath, rituals around my quiet. I've filled this space with plants and music and softness, with late-night journal entries and early morning tea, and moments that are entirely mine. No more performing, no more shrinking into someone else's absence. No more rehearsing conversations that will never be had. I used to rehearse, everything. What I'd say if he came back, how I'd stand, what I'd wear, whether I'd forgive, whether I'd cry. All that theater, all that pain, dressed up as possibility. But not anymore. Now, I rehearse peace. Now, I imagine mornings that don't ache. I dream of a future that isn't waiting on someone to decide I'm finally enough. Because I am, already. Without the text. Without the closure. Without the hand reaching back. I don't wait at the window anymore. I open it, I let the wind in. Let the world come and go as it pleases. But I no longer ache for it to bring me someone. I've become the one I was waiting for. And maybe one day, love will knock real love. Not the kind that takes and confuses and disappears, but the kind that arrives gently and stays. The kind that doesn't ask me to give up pieces of myself just to be held. But until then, and even then, I won't be waiting. I'll be living fully, deeply, right here. Because I've learned that love isn't a visitor you prepare the house for. It's a mirror that reflects what's already alive inside you. And I've come alive quietly, softly, without witnesses. I am not waiting anymore. I am here. If I am alone, I am wholly here. Not broken, not waiting, not missing a piece of myself that someone else was supposed to bring. For the longest time, I thought solitude was the punishment. That silence meant I had failed at love. That being alone made me less worthy, less beautiful, less wanted. But I see it differently now. Because in the stillness, without distraction, without performance, I finally heard the sound of my own breath. And it was enough. There is nothing empty about this space anymore. This quiet is not echo, it is presence. This room is not a waiting room, it is a sanctuary. I no longer whisper apologies to the mirror. I no longer rehearse how to be softer, quieter, easier to love. I no longer shrink at night, hoping the emptiness will fill itself with someone who doesn't see me, because I see me. And I stayed. That's the most sacred thing I've learned. That love, real love, the kind that holds and heals, has to begin at home. And I am home now. There are no empty halves here. No missing pieces. No aching vacancy, waiting to be claimed. I walk into my own life like a cathedral barefoot, reverent, whole, not asking anyone to save me, not asking anyone to witness me to make this real. Because it's real already, because I lived it. I wept through it. I rose inside it. And I don't need to disappear to be loved anymore. I won't trade my fullness for proximity. I won't sacrifice my truth for touch. If love comes again, let it come wholly. Let it knock on a door already open to the sky. Let it sit beside me, not above me. Let it arrive without asking me to abandon myself at the altar of being chosen. But if it doesn't come, if I walk this path alone, I am not lesser. I am not unfinished. I am not unloved. I am whole, in the sound of my own breath, in the softness of my own arms. In the life I built without witnesses, I don't need to be rescued. I don't need to be seen to matter. I don't need to be held to know that I am held by something far deeper than hands. If I am alone, I am not empty. I am sacred. I am sovereign. I am wholly here.